All right, seventh graders, Mr. Lyles here, and this is the video study guide for your final exam for the semester. I'm going to read off the slides. And let me say, this is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to study this daily from now until the semester exam. And let me go back and let me check. The semester exam is going to be on December 17th, Wednesday, December 17th. We're gonna get this done before we let out for Christmas break, a couple days ahead of time. So make arrangements. Please come to school. Please, please, please come to school. Be available to take the final exam, and we will close out the year on a very, very positive note. So here we go. Just a recap before we jump into the slides for 10, 11, 12. Let's take a moment and remember what we've learned so far. Over the past few weeks, we have studied how Europe has changed over time, physically, culturally, and politically, and how those changes connect to the world we live today. In chapter 10, we focus on the foundations of Europe, how ancient civilizations like Greeks and Romans shaped early governments, laws, language, and ideas that still influence modern society. We looked at the spread of culture, the rise of early kingdoms, and how ancient trade, exploration, and migration helped build the identity of Europe. In chapter 11, we moved into the Industrial Revolution, the Cold War. Students learn how new machines and inventions transform work, travel, and communication. We also discuss how the country shifted from farming to factories and how unions formed to protect workers. Then we shift to the Cold War and the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, including major symbols like the Berlin Wall and the ideas of communism versus democracy. Now, chapter 12, we are studying early Europe today, or excuse me, Europe today. The chapter breaks Europe into different regions, the British Isles, France, and Benelux, Germany, and the Alpine countries, the Nordic nations, and Southern Europe. We are focusing on what makes each area unique, their geography, culture, governments, language, and how they work together in the modern world. This chapter helps us understand how today's Europe was built on the history we've already learned in chapters 10 and 11. This test is 100 questions, right? 100 questions we've already gone over, we've already learned. It should be very simple. So, what was considered classical Europe? Ancient Greece and Rome. Ancient Greece and Rome. What does the term polis mean? And that means city state, polis, city state. What is the city state that is home to the world's first democratic constitution? And it's the Athens. Again, what is the city state that is home to the world's first democratic constitution? The Athens. Two great philosophers at this time were Socrates and who? Well, Plato. Plato. I'll say Plato. Who was ruled by few nobles and disliked change? What group of people was ruled by few nobles and disliked change? Sparta. Blank and his son Alexander the Great invaded the northern border of Greece. Who was that? It was Philip of Macedonia. Where was the empire's important center? What country was the empire's important center? Alexandria. According to a legend, which two brothers founded Egypt? Good old R&R. Romulus and Remus, I assume. Never did um, remember the correct pronunciation, but the good old R&R. Which government do people choose their leaders? Under what government do people choose their leaders? That is the Republic. Under the Empire, senators lost power to who? Under the Empire, who did the senators lose power to? The emperors. Who was a general that was killed in 44 BC by supporters of the Senate? Julius Caesar. When did Christianity in the form of Roman Catholic Church become a political power in Western Europe? This was during the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages. Men who devoted their lives to prayer, study, and good works were considered who? They were the monks. And by the way, I am going through this kind of fast because it's a lot of questions. And again, it's stuff that we have already gone over. So hopefully the tape will be between 15 and 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes of nightly study. You will be fine come the 17th. Women who devoted their lives to prayer, study, and good works were lived in what? Where do they live at? These women, they lived in monasteries. As trade grew, so did towns of Western Europe. Is that true or false? True. Who is Charlemagne? King of the Franks. Who inherited the empire of Charlotte after Charlemagne's death in 814? Sons and grandsons. Towns serve as centers of blank and manufacturing. So these towns, they serve as centers of what in manufacturing? Trade, 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 trade. All about trade. The Renaissance is a French word meaning rebirth. The right of people to learn and think for themselves, founded by who? Or what was this called? The right of people to learn and think for themselves. That was what? Humanist ideas. Humanist ideas. Two of the many outstanding Renaissance artists were Leonardo da Vinci and who? Michelangelo. And the answer was right there in the video. Bernardelli. I'm sorry, but you get it. Michelangelo B. What is Michelangelo B's most famous work? The Sistine Chapel. Sistine Chapel. True or false? The Canterbury Tales, Hamlet, and Romeo and Juliet were all written in English. Don Q was written in Spanish. Is that true or false? And most likely this is not going to be on the test because it's a poorly written question, but even still, that was true. What device made people want to learn how to read and write? Printing press. Made more books. They were available. They were out there. So they want to learn how to read and write. Henry VII, the Tudor king, who was his famous granddaughter? Elizabeth I. What are documents that free owners of punishment for sins they had committed? The indulgences. Who was the first Protestant leader? First Protestant leader. Martin Luther. In 1488, who reached the Cape of Good Hope? This is the southern tip of Africa. Bartholomew Diaz. Who was the famous navigator that sailed across the Atlantic? He's the guy who was also given credit for discovering America, and that is Christopher Columbus. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria were the names of the ships that Columbus sailed across the Atlantic with. Is that true or false? That is true. And the Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain in when? 1700s, 2000s, or the 1900s? Quite simply, the 1700s. Great Britain had a ready supply of natural resources such as blank and blank, coal and iron. Supply of people who could run the machines were called what? Human resources. Blank or woven cloth was the first industry to be moved to factories. Textiles. In 1769, Blank and Blank invented a more efficient steam engine, which was used for textile mills, riverboats, and locomotives. Who did that? It was James Watt. A Blank spoke for all workers in a factory or industry and bargained for better working conditions, higher pay, and a shorter workday. Who was that? It was a union. If a factory owner refused demands, union members often would go on what? That is a strike. Under a system called Blank, European countries claimed colonies in Africa and Asia in late 1800s. Imperialism. In 1941, a war broke out in Europe that quickly spread to European colonies and other areas of the world. It was known as the Great War and later called what? World War One. 1914's getting to World War One. Blank was blamed for starting the war. So who was blamed for starting the war and asked to pay for much of it? Germany. In 1941. So don't get that confused. 1914, World War One. 1941 is who? The United States, Soviet Union joined allies in the war to begin what became the World War II. During the war, Hitler and the Nazis carried out the blank, in which over 12 million people were killed. This gruesome event was called the Holocaust. In August, the U.S. dropped two atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of blank and Nagasaki, and that is Hiroshima. Hiroshima. The global competition between the Democratic United States and its allies and the Communist Soviet Union and its supporters is known as what? This is called a Cold War. So global competition between the Democratic United States and its allies and the Communist Soviet Union. It's a Cold War. What did both sides have in 1950 that made this a dangerous time? Both sides had nuclear weapons. Where did the Cold War begin? This is Europe. Is Italy in Europe? Yes. But I'm talking about overall Europe. And if you look at the question choices, one is a continent, the other are two specific countries. And again, we go by according to our textbook. What does our textbook tell us? And our textbook tell us began in Europe. What loan program helped factories get built, mines reopened, and roads repaired and replaced? It says so right here. The Marshall Plan. Under the blank, the United States offered military aid to countries that were fighting communism inside their borders. What was this? This is the Truman Doctrine. Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg joined together in 1948 to form the Benelux Trade Union. It's a combination of all those places. What is a satellite nation? That is a nation dependent upon a stronger power. What pact did the Soviet Union form? Did the Soviet Union form its satellites into in 1955 to counter NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization? That was the Warsaw Pact. When did the Soviets blockade all land and water traffic into the western part of Berlin? 1948. By the way, I don't like that question. I wouldn't sweat it. In response, the United States and Great Britain began and blank on a system of carrying supplies into West Berlin by airplane. What did they suppose? What did they begin? They started airlift. In August 1961, the German government built a blank mile wall between East and West Berlin. What did this symbolize? It was 103 miles, okay, of a wall, and it split between both Eastern and Western Europe. Who became the leader of the Soviet Union in 1985? I don't like this question because I can't pronounce the name. Mikhail Gorbachev. I'm undecided on whether or not this would be on the test. I get a little bit more fluent with the name pronunciation. When did the Berlin Wall come down and the east and west sides reunite? October of 1990. The countries of Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, and again, these words give me difficulty. So forgive me, but it's false. It's a poorly written question. Don't worry about it. When did the economic allies, well, excuse me, what did the economic allies alliances, what did the economic alliances, the common market, become in 1993? The European Union. So let me read that again. What did the economic alliances, the common market, become in 1993? The European Union. Okay, I can't see my question here. Uh, uh, Europe had one of the first treaties on what? And that was nuclear energy. In January 2002, most EU members started using a common currency called the blank to replace their national currency. That was the euro. What community had side powers like the right to enter contracts, obtain raw materials, and establish standards to protect workers? What community had these powers? The European Atomic Energy Communities. The blank gap between rich and poor nations of Europe needs to be lessened. And what is that? The income gap. The environment is not an important concern for Europe. Don't have to pay much attention to know that is definitely false. What river carries 25 million tons of industrial waste into the North Sea a year? And that is the Rhine River. Countries of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland are known as British Isles. That is true. About the size of Oregon, the United Kingdom is made up of 4 regions. Blank dominates the United Kingdom in population and economic strength. That is England. You can cross blank treeless, windy highland areas with damp ground. That is Moors, Moors. Voters in the UK elect representatives to a lawmaking body called the Parliament. The political party that has the largest number of members in the House of Commons chooses the government's leader, the what? And that's the Prime Minister. The United Kingdom's government is also blank blank, in which a king or queen is official head of state. And we're talking about a monarchy, because as a king and queen, so it's constitutional monarchy. With more than 7 million people, the capital city of London is one of Europe's most heavily populated cities. Blank employs more people than farming, and contributes more to the country's economy. What? Manufacturing. The Irish trace their ancestry to the blank and settled Ireland around 500 BC. The Celts or Celts, forget the pronunciation. Nearly 1/3 live in or around blank the capital. Good one. France and its Benelux neighbors rank as major blank centers of the world. Uh, the word Benelux comes from combining the first letters of 3 countries named Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I'm sorry. there's there's an error with my slides here, so pay no attention to this one. What is the largest country in Western Europe? France. A network of rivers, including Seine, the Loire, disconnects the different regions of France. False. I don't like that question. Ignore that last question. The rich soil in the blank and blank makes France an important food producer. The rich soil in the northern European plain. About 80% of France's electricity comes from nuclear power plants. This is a good test question right here, and that is true. France government is known as the what republic? The Fifth Republic. What is the capital of France? Paris. Outstanding cultural figures who lived in Paris include the writer blank and the painters Claude Monet and Pierre as Vincent Hugo. About the size of Montana, Germany lies in the heart of course, Europe. Blank is a global economic power and a leader in European Union, Germany. Superhighways called autobahns, along with railroads, rivers, and canals like Germany cities. Blank, the largest city of southern Germany, is known for its theaters, museums, and concert halls. Munich. The blank form of landscape in Switzerland, Australia, and Liechtenstein, I believe. Alps. Blank and the Danube River is the capital of the largest city of Australia. We're talking about Vienna. And I read that wrong. Vienna on the, I guess it's Danube River is the capital and the largest city of Australia. Norway is one of the world's largest blank exporters. That's oil. With questions provided already, only about 8% of Sweden's land can be used for farming. Most of Denmark is made up of a peninsula known as Jutland or Jutland. The Danes also invented and exported the world's famous blank toy building blocks, which is Lego. Blank, Denmark's capital, is the largest of the Nordic cities, Copenhagen. Iceland's economy depends heavily on fishing. Spain is one of the world's largest producers of olive oil. Getting very close to the end here. No part of Greece is more than 85 miles from the sea. To the west lies Blank, which is Germany's largest port city located on the Elbe River, Hamburg. And yeah, that is it. That is it. That is it. That is it. So it will be about 100 questions long. You will be getting this video on December the 1st. Once a day, run through the video. That's it. Once a day, run through the video. And by testing time, you will have this thing down and make very close to a 100 without failure. Okay. So again, this is Mr. Lyles. This is your semester exam here for the 25-26 school year. Thank you very much. I am signing off.